Kylian Mbappe just signed for Real Madrid, and it's the final nail in the coffin on the hopes of the millions of Barcelona fans worldwide who were hoping for a continuation of this Mbappe saga for just a few more years. Now, the signing of the French forward to the Spanish capital is not just another superstar addition to the Los Blancos roster, but marks the beginning of an probable era of sheer dominance by the men in white. Now, it is definitely not to say that the modern-day Galactico team that Real Madrid have assembled is not without its own fair share of doubts. While the talent and potential for silverware is definitely there, the question looms and will always loom as to whether they will actually be able to achieve any success and stand on the anticipation of the millions of fans worldwide. Or will they too fall short and leave fans with a sense of unfulfilled potential? Now that's a question that only time can answer, but for now, their plan looks really strong. Let's start this video from a tactical point of view, and then we can move to the other aspects as we move forward. Since the start of his second spell at Los Blancos, Carlo Ancelotti has favored an in-possession 4-3-3 with heavy reliance on his Brazilian wingers, especially Vinicius Junior and Rodrigo. He has been exceptionally talented in terms of extracting the most out of the dribbling potential from his two South American wingers. Vinicius Junior has been particularly useful, especially when he cuts in from the left-hand side in terms of both creating chances as well as taking shots on the target. Now, how many of those shots actually make it to the target? That's a different question altogether. But overall, he has been the main man for Real Madrid in the past 2 seasons, no doubt about that. Marco Asensio played from the right-hand side back in 2022, cutting in from the right onto his stronger left foot to take his chances onto the target as well. But Rodrigo, who was not a regular starter back then, is the main man now. But the right-footed Brazilian winger tends to hold the width a bit more and create chances of crosses more than taking shots directly. And that is due to the obvious fact of him being right-footed. Uruguayan midfielder Federico Valverde, who in my opinion is arguably one of the best midfielders in the world at this moment, provides another option for attack from the right, who also drops to the central midfield when needed and is one of the most versatile and adaptable players in the entire Real Madrid squad. During the latest 23-24 season, Ancelotti's men showed remarkable flexibility and adaptability in terms of formations. Set up primarily in a versatile 4-3-3 formation, they showed great fluidity in terms of switching to formations like 4-5-1 and 3-5-2, depending upon the situation and the opponent they found themselves in. And that is, I think, one of the key reasons they were able to triumph over Pep Guardiola's City twice in the last 3 years. As we can see from dissecting his tactics, that Ancelotti's main aim in a game is to control the midfield, dictate the pace of the game, and exploit the weakness of the opposition. Real Madrid's squad depth is unbelievable, at least at the front end, with a bare minimum of 2 players for every position, as we can clearly see from this graph. But then again, the same cannot be said about their back, because on the other side of the pitch, there is definitely a scarcity of players if one of the regulars gets his hamstrings pulled. So Real Madrid too has their fair share of weaknesses as well, but if we compare it to the other side of the spectrum, then they would seem minimal. XAVI Hernandez, one of the greatest midfielders of all time and Barca coach, now obviously sacked and replaced by German Hansi Flick. Now, the intent of this video is in no way to say that XAVI was a failure. Let's just say that he took the helm of the club at the worst time possible, and his tactical prowess was just not enough to lift the team up from the grave. XAVI took a turn away from the old style tiki-taka that was encoded in the club's DNA from the past decade or 3 to a more traditional striker play, with dribbling wingers trying to cut down low blocks and create crosses, with centre backs being given more liberty to move to full-back positions and central midfield to cut down counterattacks. This is evident from the fact that back in the 1920 season, only 17% of Barcelona's passes into the box came from crosses, nearly half of the second lowest team in La Liga. Whereas by the end of the 21-2 season, they were up to the 7th place in the league with 41%. Now on paper, XAVI's strategy seems fine, but we forget the fact that irrespective of how brilliant a tactics may be, you need suitable players to execute them properly. Players like Ferran Torres with high pedigree from Spain and Guardiola's City made sense on paper, but while on field, he was too much of a runner and less of a dribbler to make it into XAVI's starting 11. While on the other hand, infield attacking players like Memphis Depay and João Felix who actually seemed suitable for this strategy struggled to establish themselves in the system, whereas the homegrown starlet Ansu Fati, who also seemed suitable, could simply not stand up to the expectations of the fans. Now, it is true that players like Rafinha and Aubameyang did give Xavi his times of high, but the problem with them were they were simply not consistent enough to revive the Blaugrana. And now, with Kylian Mbappe signing for Real Madrid and Barcelona getting a coach whose philosophy is completely antipodal to the Spanish DNA, the gap between the Spanish giants is only going to increase for the next few seasons. And the reason I'm saying so is not because of the on-field supremacy that the Los Blancos enjoy, but because it is going to take some time for Hansi Flick to get himself a well-established squad that can work on his tactics. And even then, there is no guarantee that the German manager is going to enjoy any success at the Catalan capital, with Lamine Yamal, in my opinion, the only ray of hope that the Blaugrana have going up against this titanic Madrid team. Apart from having a tactical and on-field advantage, the financial situation of Los Blancos also puts them ahead of their arch-rivals. Back in January of 2023, Barcelona were on the verge of bankruptcy and were presumed to be no longer part of the Europe's elite. Joan Laporta inherited a club with more than 1 billion euros in debt, compounded with player-friendly contracts and ridden by their poor performance on the pitch. And it would be a huge understatement to say that he did not do a good job, at least from a financial perspective. Now, the way he was able to re-establish the financial situations at the club was using something known as economic levers. Now, what these economic levers are and how do they work, I'm going to explain in a separate video in which I'm going to discuss about the entire financial crisis of Barcelona in depth. But to understand it in simple terms for now, economic levers defines a decision taken by Barcelona and Joan Laporta to sell some of the assets of the club to gain some temporary capital and get some breathing space from the financial restrictions. It's like when you need money, you sell some of your furniture to get some instant cash. Not exactly same, but a good enough analogy. These financial levers were the main reason Barcelona were able to sign Robert Lewandowski and win the 2022-2023 La Liga season. Now, according to latest reports, Barcelona are willing to sell 15% of Barca Vision to return to the 1:1 FFP rule. Or if I may explain in simple words, then it means that Barcelona would no longer need to sell players in order to sign more new players. But even if these reports are assumed to be true, the Catalans are no match for the financial stability of the Los Blancos. The signing of Kylian Mbappe by Real Madrid was nothing short of a masterstroke, winning 2 Champions League and 2 La Ligas in the span of 3 years, all while vying for Kylian Mbappe, and finally being able to sign arguably the best player in the world at this moment, completely as a free transfer, while at the same time being the defending champions of Europe, is nothing short of a marvel by the men in white. And I don't think there is any other club in the world who could have achieved such unprecedented success, not just on the field, but off the field as well. Now, the purpose of this video is in no way to say that Barcelona cannot make a comeback or they are finished. In fact, I want them to make a comeback given the fact that I am personally a Barcelona fan. But we must accept the fact that at this moment, Real Madrid destroys Barcelona in almost every aspect that we can think of in this beautiful game.